Welcome back. All right, Panic Index. You will notice that I'm doing it different this time. So the panic is at the top of the board. The happiness is at the bottom of the board, where we have Kevin here eating broccoli. You can see this moment from The Office where Kevin was sublimely happy. This is for teams that are already kind of outside of the playoff hunt. Playoff hopes have kind of dwindled, and fans are just going to be waiting for the draft or whatever may happen from here. Thus, the Kevin being forced to eat broccoli part. Down here is the Stanley Cup, because that's for teams that are just basically at this point already waiting for the playoffs. When do the playoffs start? I don't know if any teams are going to end up down next to where the playoffs start. Now, I've got West and East on my table here, organized by lowest points percentage to highest. So we'll start in the West. The lowest points percentage, of course, is San Jose. Now, panic? Are they panicked? Or are they, at this point, well, we're kind of being force-fed. At this point, the broccoli that is this year's standings. So I'm going to put them here, right next to said broccoli, because we know San Jose's not making the playoffs. There's some panic, I would think, over just how rough this team looks and how many years it could take to build it back up, but there we are. Out east, we have Columbus. See, Columbus is tough because I do think there are some who are highly panicked about what's going on in Columbus, but they're so far out of the playoffs, so I'm going to put them next to the panic, because to me, even though we didn't expect them to be in the playoffs, we didn't expect it to be this bad, and it has been ugly. All right, out west again, Chicago. Chicago, I think, again, right next to San Jose here. But we knew with Chicago before the season started that they weren't going to be back in the hunt for the playoffs either. So I don't think there's any reason for Chicago fans to be in any sort of a panic. Montreal. So Montreal, I don't think there's any panic there either. I'm going to put them here. So not quite getting force-fed the way that both Chicago and San Jose have been so far this year. Although with Chicago's being force-fed the broccoli, they're also getting to see Bedard just blossom before their eyes. But for Montreal, it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this season goes. But I don't feel like they're being treated to some rough games here and there. They're just wasn't expected they were going to be in the playoffs. Anyways, Oilers. So going back out west, and it is hard not to have the Oilers next to the panic. So Tim Peel. Tim Peel, of course, I accidentally said Tim Pool in the video earlier. It's fine. It's just a couple letters difference. Completely different person. Changes the context completely. But I'll just leave it as it is. Tim Peel, and I spelled it right in the title, too. That's the worst part. But him going at it with Mark Spector, it's another layer of how rough things are right now in Edmonton. This is a team that did make the change at coach. And the first couple of games that looked like, hey, this might have gone well, and now we're back to an Oilers team that's kind of frustrated with things, and a fan base that is not having it. Because remember, we're going to start hearing about Draisaitl's contract extension, I would think, as we get closer to next summer, because, of course, it's up in 2025. So once you reach July of 2024, they can officially extend him. So they could have extension talks with him anytime. Unofficially, and then officially signed to extension July the 1st of 2024. I don't know if that's going to happen. And if it doesn't, look for a lot of discussions that will leave people with that panic face a little bit more. Buffalo. Is it the same level of panic in Buffalo? I don't think so. I'm going to put him next to Jim here with his sort of, well, so this is happening kind of face. So for Buffalo, I know that there was a lot of hope they'd be better. Hey, I was hoping they'd be better. So far this season, that has not been the case. The good news for them is they're not that far out. The bad news is that you don't have to be that far out to have quite the task in front of you when it comes to making a run at the playoffs. So, yeah, Buffalo for me, it's not full-on panic, but you guys can let me know. Minnesota, it's panic in Minnesota. I can't have Minnesota lower than the panic index magnet because it is definitely panic in Minnesota. The goaltending has not been great. There hasn't really been much going right for them over the last few weeks. and it feels like they're already saying goodbye to the 2024 playoffs. And while Bill Guerin's saying all the right things about, the cap penalty and what that's done to the team, but he bought out the contract. So, I mean, you can be mad about the NHL's system for, cap penalties when you buy players out, but you bought them out. You have to own that. So, for the Minnesota Wild, they're kind of in a bed of their own making, and we'll see how it goes from here. New York Islanders. I don't know if the New York Islanders are in full-on panic. I don't think so. Are they? Here's some Islander fans right now answering me, even though I can't hear you. I'm going to put them right here with Buffalo. So the 500 record is troubling in that after 60 minutes, they don't seemingly do very well. Although they did have the shootout win in their last game, so maybe that's going to turn around. But either way, the New York Islanders on the concerned side of things. Nashville Predators. You know what? The Nashville Predators have won their last couple of games, and they had the comeback win against the Colorado Avalanche. Plus, for them, this season wasn't seen as a playoff season anyways, so there's some encouraging signs for a team that wasn't expected to make the playoffs. Apologies, I'm still coughing and everything. Because I'm looking at it and thinking, okay, so we weren't expecting Nashville to be great this year anyways. I'm going to put them on the line on this side. Because again, if they do have a good run from here and they end up in the playoffs, it'll be really, really happy. If they end up having a bad run from here, then it's just, we'll wait for the playoffs. Oh, I almost dropped my Kevin. Don't drop your Kevin. That's a bad idea. Don't do it. I don't even know what that means. Anyways, Nashville, I'll put them on the line because why not hedge? So for Pittsburgh, we're going back to the East, obviously here. Pittsburgh, there's been enough positives lately that I'm going to put them on the line. There's been enough negatives lately. I'm going to put them on the line too. I do think that for Pittsburgh, they will probably end up rallying and getting into the playoffs. I know they missed the playoffs last year, but there's enough talent there, and they're playing well enough, and Crosby's playing really, really well, that I do think Pittsburgh's going to end up on the happier side of things sooner rather than later. Calgary. All right. Calgary's not as panicked as Edmonton, I wouldn't think. Calgary, last night, of course, they come through. They win in overtime against Seattle. That was a nice comeback win. So I'm not going to put them in the overly panicked category, just kind of concerned. They probably won't be the only team that's in that concerned spot. But for now, that's where I'm going to place them. New Jersey. I don't think there's panic in New Jersey. I think we understand that there's been key injuries. I'm going to put them on the line because I think there's been key injuries. So there's no reason to be overly happy if you're a New Jersey fan, but there's no reason to be totally panicked that this whole thing's falling apart. Once they get healthy again, they should start winning some games. If they don't, that's when you start going more towards the panic side of things, right? Seattle. I'll put Seattle in the concern spot too. With the West having at least one team that right now has a mediocre record in a playoff spot, the West looks really kind of wide open right now, doesn't it? Now, odds are somebody's going to go on a run, and by the end of the season, we'll still end up needing 92, 93 points to make the playoffs. But for right now, it looks like maybe 84 or 85 points could make the playoffs in the West, and in that case, Seattle can reach 85 points. It is interesting to see how in the West there are some teams that have really rough records right now that are unexpected, like Minnesota, like the Oilers, as two for instances there. For Ottawa, you know what? They've won 3 in a row. I'm going to put them a little bit on the happy side. I think coming out of Sweden, I think things look pretty good. It's interesting, too, because it's only a couple weeks ago that it was all doom and gloom and Ottawa's done and they're hosed and, the Pinto suspension, and then there was the loss of the first-round draft pick. And I'm not saying those aren't still things that upset them, but if they start winning games, that's going to make it easier for the team. If that first-round draft pick is, say, 23rd, 24th, 25th overall, it's easier to sell fans on losing that one and keeping their hopes up than if it's a top 15 draft pick, something like that. So for Ottawa, things have seemingly gotten better. For the Ducks, I'm going to put the Ducks on the line because, again, you know what? I'm going to put them on the line over here, right with Nashville. We weren't expecting anything from the Ducks this year. I don't think there's any reason to be panicked about the losses they've had. You can be disappointed, but I don't think there's any reason to be panicked. There still was not expectations of the Anaheim Ducks. The one thing is, if they can stay in the hunt for a little while longer, maybe Pat Verbeek goes out and shores up the team either at forward or on the blue line. They do have some cap space to do that with, so it'll be interesting to see if he does do that. Because there's definitely a lot of teams in the league that are at the salary cap that would like to have room to do something, and the Ducks could help themselves and help somebody else in the meantime. So we'll see if Anaheim stays as they are, but yeah, I'm going to put them on the line. Going back out east, Detroit. I would say concerned with Detroit. I don't have them as panicked at this point, but concerned with Detroit. Their trip overseas, not as successful as Detroit fans would like. This is a team that got off to a really hot start, and now they're in that concerning phase where you ask yourself, are they going to reach full panic stations, or are they going to turn it around? Arizona. There wasn't a lot of expectation with Arizona either, so I don't know if I want to put them on this side of the board. I'm going to put them on this side of the board because I think the rebuild portion for Arizona is kind of over, in that they have a lot of good young prospects. There's a lot of good players here. Now you're into that part of the story where you're trying to build your team up. They're currently sitting at 8-8-2. I don't see any reason to be concerned with that record if they end up 500 at the end of the year. I think that's a huge improvement over where they've been recently. So Arizona I'll put on the line. Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, you know what? I'm going to put them on the happier side of things because they do have back-to-back wins. That helps. And they're getting closer to the return of Vasilevsky. Vasilevsky's expected to return this week. And so with Vasilevsky back in the lineup, that should equate to fewer goals against and maybe more goals for. The team might take more chances offensively, knowing you got Vasilevsky in the net, and you're not as concerned about the goaltending. Not saying that as any kind of offense to Johansson, but obviously Vasilevsky considered to be the better of the two goaltenders. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn there in saying that. For St. Louis, happier side, right? I would say, yeah, happier side of things. Sure. They have a solid record right now, and again, with the West being as it is, can they get in? They can. I don't know if they do, but they can. I think things in St. Louis right now are going relatively well, considering expectations coming into this season. Going out east to Philadelphia. I'm going to put Philadelphia right here. And it's, what, a 5-game winning streak now? Yeah, that'll turn things around fast. The Philadelphia Flyers are playing really, really good hockey right now. I'm impressed with the systems Tortorella has in place. He's got the guys buying in. There's definitely an identity to Tortorella players, a Tortorella team, and they've done a really solid job of making sure they have players that match his style. The one that stands out as being in the doghouse right now is Morgan Frost. I don't know how much longer Frost is a member of the Flyers, or if, maybe he gets it together and ends up in the lineup more regularly, but it does feel like maybe Frost's days with the Flyers may not last that much longer. Winnipeg, they better be happy right now in Winnipeg. Things are going really, really well. I don't see any reason to have them on the panic side, for instance. And they're 10-5-2 right now? Yeah, that's a solid number. The Winnipeg Jets. I don't have them in the overly happy category, but yeah, pretty happy, pretty upbeat. Nice, spring in their step when they're walking around. Yeah, I can show my face right now as a Jets fan. It feels pretty good. And again, for people who said they were mediocre a month ago, maybe go check them out. They're not mediocre. Carolina, I'm not going to put this high. I'm going to put them here. Carolina, there's been enough wins that you can see this team is getting itself, into a good position. But there's also been enough setbacks, and even in some of those wins, there's been some weaknesses to the team here and there that I don't know if Carolina fans are overly happy right now, so I have them on the happier side of the line. But not in that same region as, say, Philadelphia and Winnipeg right now. But yeah, Carolina, I still think they're going to be there at the end. They're still considered a favorite for the Stanley Cup. Could very well just be pacing themselves. Teams do that. And then we question them all season, and then all of a sudden they win the Stanley Cup. Isn't that right, Washington? All right, Colorado. It really depends on the week, doesn't it? If I did this week ago, I think Colorado would have been on the panic side. But right now, with the way things are going, I'm going to put them here. Now, they did lose that lead and lose that game in the final minute against Nashville last night, which was a bit of a shocker. But outside of that, things have been going pretty well. They were down 3-0 against Dallas. They win 6-3. This is a team that's still, riding without Gabriel Landeskog. So, yeah, I mean, Colorado, I don't have them as like the really, really ridiculously happy right now, but close. Toronto. Is Toronto ever really, really happy? And I'm going to say they have to be next to the Stanley Cup. This is the argument, right? Anytime the Leafs are winning, our answer is going to be, well, yeah, but we'll see what happens in the playoffs. I don't think that's fair. I think that there should be less focus on Nylander's contract status, less focus on, what's going to happen in the first round, though, in April, and more discussion on when the team's playing really well. That being said, I don't know if that's going to be the case because we still look at Toronto and go, yeah, but the playoffs, right? And so that's there. And I think the team knows that's there too. Vancouver, things are pretty happy in Vancouver. This is one of the best starts the team's ever had. Even though they had a few setbacks going into the game against San Jose last night, I don't think they brought their A game against San Jose either at points. But they won the game, and things are going pretty well in Vancouver. The fans seem to be quite happy right now in Vancouver. The game I went to against the Islanders, that's the most upbeat that crowd's ever been at a game I've been at in my time with this channel. And so, yeah, definitely some exuberance and some happiness there. Washington. Things are pretty happy in Washington. I'm going to put the Capitals down here. Keep in mind that they're doing this while Ovechkin's not, tearing things up from a goal scoring perspective. Things are going pretty well for the Washington Capitals. I don't think there's any reason for Caps fans to have any sort of panic anytime soon. I do wonder if Washington's scoring is sustainable, but at this point, their scoring has improved. And that was a big problem they had early in the season, was getting goals. For the LA Kings, yeah, things are really happy right now in LA. And they should be. The LA Kings are playing quite well. They've now evened up their record at home to 3-3-3, and on the road they're 8-0. They've won all 8 games on the road. So, pretty impressive record overall. And so I have the Kings in the happier side of things. Florida. Well, with the way things are going with Florida right now, they've won a bunch of games. They're playing really, really well. If not for Boston's ridiculous start to the season, we would likely be talking more about Florida and the start they've had. But yeah, almost a quarter of the way through the season, and they're plugging along, doing really, really well. I will be doing the grading as well at the quarter mark, so that'll be coming up over the next week or so. Once enough teams have reached that 20-game mark, I'll go ahead and grade them, which is always fun and leads to some discussions. But yeah, Florida, I don't see any reason not to have them in the happiest section of the board. For Dallas, Dallas, I'm going to put them here. So Dallas, I still think there's enough concerns about a full 60-minute game with Dallas that I wouldn't have them in the ecstatic portion, like the really, really ecstatic portion of the board here with Vancouver, LA, and Florida. I do have some concerns with Dallas that, I don't know, you guys can let me know if you think I'm off on this one or not, but yeah, I'll have Dallas there. The New York Rangers, the Rangers have had a ridiculously good start. They did lose last night against Dallas, but that was their first regulation loss in 12 games. So that's pretty good. I double checked. That's a pretty good record for the New York Rangers. So the happiness, it's got to be kind of odd for Rangers fans at this point, because I think this is the best start this team has ever had. And I'm thinking back to the 93-94 season, which was a very good year. They finished first overall. The start to this season might be more impressive. So, at any rate, the New York Rangers, I think, quite exuberantly happy. Vegas, putting Vegas right here. Yeah, Vegas and Toronto I've got right next to the Stanley Cup. Could that be the Stanley Cup final? As a YouTuber, I say please, but I don't necessarily know that would end up being. I mean, it's an interesting idea, but Vegas, anything they do, it's just about, okay, can they repeat as Stanley Cup champions? But they've had a ridiculously good run so far, and then Boston. So closing things out, the team with the highest points percentage in the NHL again, a team that is on pace to win the President's Trophy again. They did that last year too. So I'm taking Boston and putting them right down here next to that Stanley Cup, because no matter what they're doing right now, no matter how good the record is, what is your answer going to be? Well, yeah, they won 65 games last year. Look how it turned out for them in the playoffs. And that's fair. That is absolutely a fair comparison to make. It's a fair comment to make. And so Boston, Vegas, and Toronto are the three teams that, to me, have really good records. And that's great. But the question then becomes playoffs. Does Vegas repeat as Stanley Cup champions? Can Toronto overcome years of underachievement? And if Boston wins another President's Trophy, can they win their first Stanley Cup when they win a President's Trophy? Boston's no stranger to winning the President's Trophy. Go look over its history. I'm pretty sure Boston and Detroit are the ones that have won it the most. For Detroit, it wasn't a curse, but Boston, it certainly has been. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.